Welcome to In Pieces with Our Land. This podcast is a conversation between me, Kim Drobes, and Atlanta-based artist Our Land. It's about how work comes into the world and what happens after it does. Each episode focuses on a single piece, not just how it was made, but how it moved through cities, through people, and through time. We talk about the small decisions, the late nights, and the moments when a piece took on a life of its own. They're stories about process, instinct, and the path art takes as it circulates through public space and private memory. This is art after it leaves the studio. For our very first episode, we're starting with Lost Cat, a piece that at first glance can seem deceptively simple. We'll discuss how Lost Cat quietly became part of the visual landscape, how it traveled from the streets of Atlanta to New York, from anonymous flyers to magazines, movies, and storefronts. So, Our Land, are you ready?
I'm so ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do this. Before we get started formally, I think we need to introduce you to the world as your friends know you. So, may I
Mm-hmm.
call you by your first name, Ronnie, moving
Sure.
forward? Excellent. So, let's talk about Lost Cat. This piece is around 30 years old. Do you feel like it aligns with the work you were doing at the time?
Lost Cat is kind of I would say it lines up with my sensibility in general, but is a wee bit different in that, like when I created it, I was in Kinko's back before you could do everything in Photoshop and just create imagery on your computer or phone. I was running jobs at Kinko's. I used to go there a lot and just run prints of things or banners or whatever, combination of commission jobs and or just other projects that I had. And so while I would wait for these jobs, this would be like 2 or 3 in the morning or at least midnight because they were open 24/7.
Mm,
And I brought just my notebook with me or my little bag of ephemera and things, tools that I would use on the spot while I was there. I don't know if
right.
this probably isn't something that the average artist now would understand. Maybe they do. But so I had just a collection of photos and drawings that, just in case the mood hit me, I could work on it and make copies. And back then, I was completely ignorant of Photoshop and just all the techniques that are now very common. I guess this is one thing that I haven't thought about before. When you are at a place like Kinko's copies or any kind of copy center, for me, I could just take out something that was like a black and white drawing, bring my X-Acto knife and some wax sticks and cut and paste things together and then run copies like flyers for music shows what have you, which I did a lot of, and I did them on the spot sometimes, especially this was like around 2000, 2001. And so I just while I was waiting on a job, I had this picture of a cat that I'd held on to for a really long time and put it in position on an 11 by, or maybe it was 8.5 by 11, and then just wrote some text, just some nonsensical stuff that just sort of felt right, in the second that I was doing it. And after I put it together and ran off a copy, I just lost it. I laughed because I don't always laugh at my own things, but I can still know they're funny. But this is one of those things that sort of knocked me to the ground.
So you had this picture of this cat in your bag. Do you have
Yeah,
any recollection of where it came from?
I can't remember. It was a color photo, and I'd probably cut it out of some old antiquated book of some kind, I think, or it might have been at that time, and even in the 90s, I collected just random photographs at garage sales and
Mm,
thrift stores. Like I would buy boxes of just like weird random photos of animals, people. So I had a folder full of stuff like that. And
okay.
I
Yeah.
had no plan for what any of that would turn out to be. But yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you said you wrote some words.
Yeah.
I know what words are on there. Where did they come from? Tell me about your thought process if you remember.
I don't know that there was any real process other than it was just sort of a stream of consciousness trying to like just put down words that made it feel like a flyer. And this is, good amount of time before just pet flyers have always been around because people lose their animals and they want to find them. And it's tragic and funny, but I think I just wanted to make up a flyer that would announce this poor animal that's in the window, which is what the photograph is. It's an animal in a window. And I also put eyebrows on the cat, like sad eyebrows. And
Yeah,
then I
you
wrote it
did.
out, and then I just, sort of ran with the feeling of whatever it was. I didn't think about it. I was just trying to be funny and write it in the way that someone that is a very pitiful person would be missing their cat.
For someone who's not looking at it right now, can you pull up an image and read the text for us?
Yeah, let me find it. Hold, please.
Mhm.
I don't have it memorized. Speckles, which is the name of the cat. I don't know where that came from. I don't know why I called him Speckles. Now it's kind of like such a, to me, I mean, because I've done series of paintings with just a cat face. There's sort of
Mhm.
more like in the theme of like a Warhol kind of series. And they're
Right.
just called Speckles heads without any of the accompanying text. Okay, there it is. It just says lost cat, Losscat, and then the text at the bottom below the picture of the cat is Speckles, comma, does not come, limps, dirty, not tag, reward, needs medicines, period, phone, call ward. Yeah. So that's it. At that moment, if you just told some random person, this is what I'm working on, which is not even, it isn't, at that moment, it didn't even seem like work. It was
Right.
just a minor expression to the side of all the things that I thought were important about what I was in the middle of in 2000, 2001. It's not like I thought it was any great shakes. It was just something that was personal for me and something fun to make on the side. And then my job was completed at the counter with the service tech. And then I came home, which is the studio I'm still in to this day. And then I just started getting my bag out and put the copies in the bag and drove around Atlanta at 3 in the morning and put them everywhere, like on the Crog Tunnel, telephone poles. And the next day I went to breakfast and I was in line at the Thumbs Up and I heard people talking about it because it was like on several poles and newspaper stands and it was just funny. It was like an instant thing where I was like, "Oh my God, this is captivating in its own way." And nobody
So,
knew it was me because I didn't sign my name to it or anything. It was just this anonymous.
why anonymous?
Well, I mean, I don't know that, again, it was like such a break off side piece of an expression. I didn't think it was important to claim it. It's just I just wanted to see it out in the world, and I
Right.
I I was hoping that it would get some sort of response, but I mean, I wasn't counting on it. But over time, what it's become is like this piece that is in the top 5, like, most important expressions of my life. To this day, 24 or 5 years later, it's still like the thing that gets the most attention. People still ask for it for multimedia stuff and still gets
Mhm.
rented out for movies, commercials, and videos. And it's just sort of grown on its own an entire life and career outside of whatever else I do.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. One of the first things I remember you had told me once when Lost Cat started on a path of its own was that Found Magazine reached out to you, right?
Yeah, back in those days, before social media and before viral communication became what it is now, like where things catch fire and go like they do. Found Magazine was this magazine. They just published things that were found out in the world, like sad notes, funny notes, um, just all kind of random kind of things that came from people writing or drawing. And I love that magazine. And they didn't reach out to me. What happened was that they found Lost Cat somewhere out there. I think it was Baltimore. Back then I was traveling Chicago, Baltimore, New York, a lot of different places. And everywhere I go, I'd carry Lost Cat flyers with me because it was just a part of my repertoire at that point. But like this underground part of me that's not about, hey, this is my project. It was just like a little fun thing that I did. So the magazine published Lost Cat as a found piece, and it was like a full page. And then they had a
Oh,
coffee table book that came out because the magazine was so popular. They put out volumes of coffee table books to celebrate the best of their magazine through the years. So
right.
it even gained steam with it being a full page in their coffee table book. And then the follow-up coffee table book had a cartoon that someone had drawn about the story of Lost Cat by this artist. I think his name is Neil Scorpin. who was a cartoonist, and he did a 8-panel cartoon about Lost Cat. It just got all this attention from this magazine that I loved, and of course, it didn't give me any credit because it just thought it was real. And so I called the
Right.
guy and said, "Hey, man, I hate that this." I think I actually did call him too, because that's back when still you didn't necessarily have to email. You could still get people's numbers just from the back of a magazine or whatever. I called him and told him that I don't know if this has any bearing on your passion for pushing this thing continuously, because they used it a lot. It's like, but it's not an actual real fire. It's not real at all. And he was like sort of disappointed, but also like,
Aw.
he's a little bit bummed out at first. And he's like, you know what? But I think that's actually even cooler. It took him a minute to come around to it. And then he decided to keep going with it. And I think they used it for other things. I can't remember what else they did with it.
Wow.
But yeah, that was about 2004. So it had been around for about 3 years at that point.
Got it. And a couple of the really big collaborations that ended up coming out of this had to do with Cartoon Network as well as Urban Outfitters.
Hmm.
Which came first?
Let's see. I think Urban Outfitters came first because they reached out to me about doing a licensing deal with just not the Lost Cat flyer itself, even though I tried to say, hey, this will do really well in your stores around the world
Yeah.
if you just have the flyer like printed on wood. But they weren't interested in that. They only wanted to do the cat head. And so I gave them 3 choices for the color, and, Allison, my wife, is actually the person who really pushed that with them and managed that whole account. So, like, that was, like, about 2006. So, it was alive for about 5 years and was still rolling hard and heavy as a mark, so to speak. Um,
Phew.
yeah, they licensed it and used it and, bought a ton. I've got all these great pictures of just, like, me silk screening cat heads on different colored wood with different backgrounds. This is even before the AHA background. It's just like random abstract backgrounds with the cat head in yellow, green, and blue, and then just boxed up hundreds of them, probably upwards of a couple thousand, and shipped them to their main store or distribution center, and they shipped them all over the world. So for a long time, I would get people they would see my name, they look me up, and they would contact me about it. This is all, first 5 years of the new century. And it was such a really interesting thing to have something that is based on one thing I create and then just distill it down to like color portraits of just the face with the eyebrows and have it
Mm.
circulate around the world like that. Meanwhile, relatively close to the same time, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, I think Aqua Teen, they licensed the Lost Cat for Meatwad. I think in the scene, Meatwad used Lost Cat flyers to promote their rock show to get girls to come to their event. And so there's a scene where he's putting them around town. Meatwad is, for those of you who don't know who Meatwad is, he's one of the characters from that television show that's now off the air. But he put him around town, and there's like a shot, a close up, and then there's like this shot where there's just the whole neighborhood is plastered with Lost Cat flyers. And that was another cool kind of I wouldn't call it a collaboration, but that where it just sort of found its way into another format or another kind of media.
Yep.
Um,
New life.
yeah, and then after that, Squidbillies used. And this is probably another 5 years later. That speaks to the fact that it had so much strength that it hits the streets at the beginning, like the first year of the century, and then 10 years later it's still something that's worthy of like, hey, we would like to promote the 3rd season of Squidbillies by using your imagery. Like you redesigned this whole thing as Lost Cat, but add squid to it, and so that was really cool because so then I designed these 3 different flyers. They're basically just Lost Cat with similar wording, but just a little more based on squids, and then misspell squid, put it on there, and then draw 3 of the main characters in sort of with sad eyebrows, where the cat would normally be. And like I did 3 of them, sent them to them as a file. Each one is a file, and then within like a couple of weeks, they're sending me pictures back from all over the world of these murals that are like 30 feet wide or just huge in Brooklyn and different places. And so that was a week where I could say, man, I did like 100 murals this week. That kind of feeling where all I did was the design, but they hired artists around the country to paint these lost squid flyers.
How surreal.
It was very wild. This was just one of those things that was instant, and then
Yeah.
all permutations of this mark continue to give back. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Tell us about the Unabomber one.
Yeah, the Unabomber one, I created, and that's around 2006 or 7 as well. I think about whenever MySpace was around, and it was the preeminent social media and probably the first one that most people experienced before Facebook became super hot. I just had a lost cat page. I didn't even have like a regular Rland page. I just had a lost cat page, and it was just about lost cats. So what that meant was I had to post things that were related to the cat flyer, which sounds so limited, but it was a fun adventure to try to find out how much stuff I could create that uses that. So one of those
Right.
things was I just took the Ted Kaczynski artist, because nobody, for
Mm-hmm.
years they couldn't find him and know exactly who he was. Before they knew he was Ted Kaczynski, he was just called the Unabomber.
Right.
So I had that basic sketch, that I printed out, and I just added the cat face and integrated those two images. And it looked really iconic to me because everybody's familiar with his sketch. I mean, I assume people are, but maybe no one even knows who he is anymore. But then I found myself like making prints of that, silk screens and prints on mirrors and t-shirts and stuff. And it also took sort of a life of its own, including there's a show on Cartoon Network Adult Swim that David Hughes started. I don't know, I guess it's been 15 years now, where he just basically said, can we use that? Can we license that from you? Just that one Unabomber drawing? And I say, yeah. So it's like this, I don't know if it's every single episode, and it's one of my favorite shows on Cartoon Network. I have a hard time trying to describe what it is exactly. It's like a montage of just weird videos. I mean, now you can go on like Instagram and just find random weird videos of all kinds, and there's AI. But back then it was just like he found people around the world that did weird videos. So what he did with the
Right.
Unabomber is take just the drawing, animate it to sync up with a prank call. There's some guy, it's not Jerky Boys or something that common. It's funnier and more esoteric than that. There's this guy that was making prank calls back in the, I guess, 90s and early aughts. And he just animated the Unabomber to be the caller, and then had these additional images of people that are sort of like a grocery store or a hotel or whatever.
Hey, Ray, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I need to get some bruschetta, if I could.
Excuse me?
Bruschetta.
Shoddy?
Yeah. A shot of bruschetta.
Sorry, I can't hear you, man.
I need a shot of bruschetta.
Boucher?
Yeah, bruschetta, shoddy. If I could.
Ah, dude, I can't hear you. You're like breaking
bro.
up.
Yeah, well, how late y'all open, bud?
9 o'clock?
Cool, I need some biscotti and bruschetta and bruschetta.
All right, hold on, dude. All right.
And so it became its own little weird phenomenon because in the last 10, 15 years, I've been places where that's one of the things that's in the backdrop with me. Just the
Wow.
thing that I created for me and for my space. And teenagers or young people will come by, look at it, point at it, and just recite the phone call like they know it by heart.
Right,
Has
right.
nothing to do with me in their mind. It's just like, oh, there's that thing, because they watch that
Well,
show.
it's art inspiring other art. And speaking of, when did you find out that a teenage punk band wrote a song about speckles?
Oh yeah. That band is called Eyeball Skeleton, and they weren't even teenagers. They were kids. I think one was 8 and the other one was 10.
Wow.
And their dad played guitar with them.
Lost cat! Lost cat! Lost cat! There's a lost cat when you call he won't come. If you got some treats, you better give him some. Goes by Speckles, and the Scratchbush isn't known.
And they had a decent little following because you remember REK. I mean, REK is still here, but REK and RES used to play a couple of their songs. They had a song called Smoky Turtle, and they had a song called Eyeball Skeleton. They're just like these random, absurdist kind of lyrics about things that kids 8 and 10 would be into. Spooky Mummy. Their album was kind of like it was kind of a phenomenon. It wasn't like they found me, but they knew about Lost Cat. I knew it, and I reached out to them, and just me and the dad decided that they should write a song about Lost Cat. And they did, and then we just decided, well, it's not going to go in I don't think they produced another album after the Eyeball Skeleton debut, but we released, because we had dual rights to it on a handshake. They wrote a song, they sent me the file, I listened to it, I was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's just so silly and awesome, and perfect. And then we released it as a single on a CD, and I made a jacket for it out of felt, silk screened the jacket front and back, and then put out like 1,000 CDs or something like that
That is
of
so
the song
fun.
with 2 other songs. It's like a minute. What do you call that? It's when
Like an EP.
it's an EP or a CD single. I would then take that and send it to record stations around the country, which doesn't even sound like it would be a thing at all anymore. But I would just be driving through a city listening to college radio, and especially REK and RES, and I'd hear it get played. And so it was kind of just a thrill back then because, back then college radio still had a lot of power. And then when I made the singles, after I sent them out to radio stations, Criminal Records carried it in a little point of purchase display that I made. And I think I told you before, it was like in the top 20 best-selling records in the store for a long time. I think I might love that part of the story as much as any other part.
Lost Cat! Lost Cat! Lost Cat! Lost Cat!
That's fantastic. So, aside from Cartoon Network, you started seeing Lost Cat show up in other film and television projects, right?
There are a lot of films and TV shows and commercials and music videos that either contacted me and said, hi, we would like to put these 3 color cat heads in a scene. Can we get you to sign off on that? Can we pay you? Can we buy them? And I think maybe one of the ones that shows up the most for the most amount of time is that movie called is it called Change Up? It's Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman. They licensed that for that one movie, and then it's like in this infamous scene where he's in the bath. Ryan Reynolds is in the bathroom, sitting on the toilet. I've never seen the movie, and I don't know that I can sit through it, but it might be good. It might be good for all I know. I don't know. But that was in the beginning of like the super hot moment for Atlanta where movies are being made here all the time. And then there's a lot of other movies and things like videos and commercials where it's been used. A lot of them I get paid for. Some of them I just get a licensing fee or or else they just buy it and get me to sign the release. There was a movie called Spring Breakdown with Amy Poehler and a bunch of female comedians and actresses that were in an ensemble cast, and that's the first time I ever got a screen credit and money to have just the 3 Speckles heads in a row in a restaurant scene. I mean, there are literally about 100 credits for Lost Cat just in the background of movies.
Amazing. So, we're going to wrap up soon, but there's one more story that happened pretty recently that I wanted you to share. John Waters was in Atlanta, and did his people reach out to you?
Yeah, that was really cool. So John, as most people in Atlanta that are fans of his know, he does a December show every year at the Variety, and it's usually sold out. And I've been to a few of them, but a lot of my work decorates the backstage green room. And so in the past, when I haven't been there, people send me pictures of like him and like Jane County. And someone sent me a picture. It might have been Jim Belgard, who was my Corona sponsor. She's really one of my good friends, but I have to say that because she brings me beer. She took a picture of them backstage with the lost cat in the background. Intentionally, it's in the background. So that's been 3 or 4 years. So John comes back every year and Lost Cat's in the green room along with some other stuff. And so I just happened to be at Elmere the night when John was performing, and I had forgotten that he was performing next door, but I was sitting at a table, and Lisa Miller, who is one of the people that run the Variety Playhouse, she came in to get food for everybody to go back to Variety. And I saw her for a minute, gave her a hug, and then the next thing I know, Brad from Variety comes in and says, "Hey, John wants to know if he can buy that lost cat back there." So, so basically I said, "Yeah, just let him have it for this much." And then he wasn't able to leave with it, but then he forwarded his number to the Variety staff and said, "Just have Ronnie call me." So I called him and we talked for like an hour, and
Wow.
he's, I mean, he's such a gracious, wonderful human being in general and very funny. He just basically said that he loved it and he's been wanting to get it and he's so happy to get it. And so we were working out there how to get the piece to him. And then he just said, "Now, did you find that somewhere?" I was like, "No, I mean, it's kind of something I made myself. I wrote it." And he said, "Oh my God, that was so much better." To him, he wasn't even aware of that. He didn't know it was like a complete composition that's just from scratch. He thought it was something that I just found and appropriated,
Oh,
as far as the entire piece. So, we're like friends now, and but he's definitely someone that it makes total sense that he would connect with that piece, and then at the same time, I don't know how I would even say it, but I'm thrilled that he of all people would want that in his collection. And it's not even, to
I
me, it's
love
not
it.
even about art. It's just, I'm not thinking about it like it's an art piece. He probably is, but I don't think about it as an art piece. I just find it to be like this massive connecting thing that's really gone around the globe and has had a life of its own. And if I had never done another thing in my life, that thing, if I just focused on that, I bet I could have so much fun just finding more and more ways. I keep spoofing it, parroting it, and making new versions like the Lost Shaker of Salt, where there's it, and I post it at the beach on different poles, sign poles. There's just no end. And then sometimes I think, all right, I need to lay off of this. I homage it too much, you know? It's like I give it too much. It's not like the only thing I do by a million miles, but it is something that I return to, sort of like Pray for a Tale, like something that's really that does really well and resonates. I want to do a play on it, like sort of almost make fun of the thing without an homage at the same time, and say, just goof on it, because
Yep.
it becomes so not popular is not the right word, but it is. But it's just one of those things that's in the hundreds of thousands of prints at this point. So it's almost like I want to make fun of it, because your instinct as an artist, especially when you're kind of a grassroots, non quote unquote commercial artist, you want to make fun of things that are popular. But when your actual stuff becomes popular, you still want to make fun of it.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Ronnie Land, thank you so much for talking about Lost Cat. More stories, more work, more conversations ahead. Thank you, Ronnie.
I love talking about it, and I can't believe anybody wants to hear it. So I'm happy. I'm happy that you're interested enough to ask me questions.
You've been listening to In Pieces with Our Land. I'm executive producer Kim Drobes, and our theme music is generously provided by composer Chris DeVoe. Thank you for joining us.